Hello guys and welcome to this tutorial on Swift. I'm going to be teaching today how to use switches, and we're going to be using a variable as well for this tutorial. So let's jump right into Xcode. I'm using version 10.1 at the time of recording. You can use a older version of Swift as well if you wish, because most of these remain the same. But let's go and hurry and create a new Xcode project. And we're going to click a single view application under iOS and click next. What the product's name is going to be is switches, and make sure your programming language is set to Swift. And we're going to click next, and I'm going to save it up in my coding workspace folder, which like I always do. And now I'm going to set my device orientation to portrait, but you can do landscape if you wish, but I'm doing portrait for this. And we're going to head over to main.storyboard. So before we actually add any code in, I'm going to set up the design first. And that's going to be one button and two labels. Actually, we can also do two buttons because we can be more flexible with what we want to do overall. So let's go, and if you're in the new Xcode version, you will see that to add a label in or to add a button, you have to go up to the very top right now and look for the label or button that you want to add, and that is what we want to add in our top here. And I'm going to add in a button as well, so that I can just copy and paste and I don't have to drag it over and over again. But we're going to make the button bigger, and this label is going to say we will manipulate what it will say later in the code itself. So let's copy and paste these two. So command and click both of them, and we're going to copy and paste with command C and command V. Okay, and this label will be at the bottom, and this will say result of value. So this label will also be affected after we manipulate the value, which I will show later once we add the code for these two buttons. So this will be add, this one will be subtract. Okay, so let's, now that we've gotten this set up, let's go and open up our assistant editor over here on the right. And I'm going to drag in, but before we drag in anything, let's declare a variable first. So we're going to var, and this will say output var, and we'll equal it to 0 for now. And then we're gonna go underneath and drag in the two buttons. Okay, so command click, actually control click or right click and drag it into the bottom. It should not be in between any parentheses, so like this override func view did load, if you were to put that in there, that would not work because we want that is inside the method of when the view loads up. So we're not gonna put it inside that function. But the connection is supposed to be action, the name is going to be add button, type is any, event is touch up inside, and arguments are sender. Click connect and do the same thing for the subtract button. So control click, keep saying command for some reason. Okay, control click, and then this will be the subtract button, connect it again like you did with the add button. So I'm going to space that out so that I have some room to type in my code later. And now let's go to our view did load, and this will be where we put our labels later. So this will be, we'll first have to declare the two labels. So this label will be, let me put that there. So connection is outlet, type is UI label, storage is strong, and this label will say label 1. Do the same thing for result of value, which will say label 2. Okay, and label 1 is first going to say, so label 1, the text, equals, and add in a string, and this will say 0 for now. So if you notice, our 1 will say label, but we want it on the view did load because that is when the app loads up. The view did load is the first thing that will run, and basically we're telling the application when it first loads up, we're going to use the label and set it to say 0. And you'll see what I mean. So right now we have our iPhone 8, it's view as iPhone 8, so I'm gonna head over to my simulator and put that in as iPhone 8, and let's click build and run. I'll pop my simulator up once this loads up. Okay, so make sure, because this can take a while depending on how big your application is. which I started a brand new application just for this tutorial, so it's gonna load up quickly. But if you have an existing application, that's also fine. Just expect it to load up much slower because you have more other data inside it as well. Okay, so now if you notice, if we go to our storyboard, it says label. We do not manipulate or change anything in the text. But if we go to the simulator, it says 0, and that is because of what we put over here. So we set the text and we added a string and we put 0. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want the variable, right now we have it also set to 0. So once we click our add button, so if we click our add button right now, it is not changing because we didn't code anything in between our function. So let's click stop and let's start to put output var. So my integer was called output var. You have to make sure those two match. Plus equals 1, and then add in label1 dot text, and now for the text we're going to do equals, again a string, but this time it's going to be a backward slash and 2 brackets, and in between those 2 brackets it's going to say output var, basically what we called our variable. Okay, now let's click build and run again, because what we're doing now is we're adding 1 on the variable, and we want our label to show our variable's new value. So go back to the simulator and we're going to press add. Now if you notice, if we click add now, it is adding it's adding 1 each time when we click. There is no limit to how much you can click. You can click as much as you wish. But what we want to do is when we surpass a certain point, we also want to make our second label underneath change. Okay, so let's click stop, and now this is where our switch will come in handy. So create a new function. So func, this will be our switch function, and we're gonna space that out. So add into add in an open bracket and a close parentheses after that. And I'm going to now add in a switch. So type in switch. Now for the value, we're putting output var, which is what we called our integer or variable. Okay, so now case is 1. Now in the code we can put something like label. Oh, we could do label 2 now. Label 2 dot text equals. We can say something like we are at number 1. Okay, so let's make this bigger because that's quite a long sentence. So let's make this bigger. Now you'll see an error pop up underneath default, but that's okay because we're going to add in another one that will say label2.text equals, and then we're going to add in another string, and this time will say none of the cases are true. So this is our switch right here. So we can copy and paste this again, and we're going to do case 2, case 3, case 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we can do at least 10 of these cases, but if you want to add some more, that is entirely up to you. So let's change up to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So now it will say we are at number 1. Now for case 2, we are at number 2, we are at number 3, at number 4, 5, and then we're going to go all the way up until we reach number 10 or how much you wish. Okay, so let's click play. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's go to add button and let's go and call our new function. So it was called switch function. Underneath our label 1, the text equals, and then our variable, let's do switch function, and simply press enter, and that is all we need to do. Okay, so we will add more to the subtract button later, but let's click play and let's see how our app looks like so far when we click our add button. Pay attention to the second label as well, the result of value. Okay, click add. Now if you notice, our result of value changed to we are at number 1. When we click add again, it will see we are at number 2. We're at number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We click again. And now if you notice, once we pass number 10, it will say none of the cases are true. And now I will explain why. That is because this whole thing is a huge if statement basically. So basically saying if it's case number 1, so if our output variable is set to number 1, output in our second label, output we are at number 1, and the same thing applies for each of these other 9 cases over here. However, this default is basically saying if none of these are true, so let's say we have only taken into account, we have taken 1 to 10. Now, if our value is, say, 23, 24, 11, or even 15, for example, this is the default case, and this will say none of these are true. So this whole default thing will run if none of these are true. So if the value is not between 1 to 10, basically every other number will output this same label. So if I were to add 11, it will say we are at number 11 instead of immediately jumping to none of these cases are true. Okay, so now we can also add, that's how you do switches. Okay, so let's also add a subtract button. So we can copy and paste this as well. So Command C and Command V, we don't have to retype everything out. If you're new to programming though, I suggest you type it all out. But for the subtract button, almost everything remains the same, except instead of addition, we're gonna remove the plus sign and we're going to do a minus symbol. So it will subtract whenever we hit something like, whenever we press subtract, it will subtract. Okay, so let's click play and let's see how it works now. So this basically all we need to do for switches. We can mess around with it as well. So let's go to add. Okay, so we are back at verse 18. Now let's click subtract, and as you can see, it is going down. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. Now, if you notice, if I go back to 10, the label changes back to how it used to be. That is because although we were at default, we subtracted it so that we were able to get to number 10, so that this if statement basically became true. Well, this case became true once we reached the value of 10. Okay, so that's basically all you need to know for this. This is good for stuff like high scores. If you're trying to make a game and you want to add certain values to it, if you're making a game in Swift, this is a good handy trick to learn. Now, before we end this video, I will just say that we can also do something called let, and this is a variable let. For example, let's say 3. But the reason why we want to use var is because this cannot be changed. Okay, so let cannot be changed, it's static. However, var can be manipulated. So those are the two main differences that you need to know when you want to choose. And no, I've seen people before get those two mixed up. So var can be modified, while let is for basically constant, it cannot be modified. Okay, so that's all you need to know. So I don't have to you could actually click off the video earlier. This is just some extra knowledge just for you aspiring programmers. But anyway, so that's all I'm going to show you for this video. So thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it, hit like and subscribe if this video helped you out. And I will be releasing an Avengers Endgame review. It's a great movie. I'm releasing a review of it tomorrow. So stay tuned for that as well. And stay tuned for more programming tutorials. So peace out.